Hi, my name is Riley Ernst. I'm the Crave the Sound podcast coordinator. This week, Kylie Ketcher will be interviewing Sam Paulino of 99 Neighbors.
I'd love to get this started just by asking you real bare bones basic stuff, maybe just giving listeners a quick intro to what 99 Neighbors is, your own personal history with music. I'm really curious about how you got into it, how you got into rapping and singing and all that kind of stuff.
Let's see. Well, what do you want to know first?
Let's hear how you got into music personally before you met the guys from 99 Neighbors.
So I got into music at a really young age. So my mom is a radio DJ, still is, back in Burlington. And just growing up, I was always in the studio, sleeping in the studio, just like hearing all sorts of stuff. It was mostly top 40, but anywhere from like Justin Timberlake to Eve to Fall Out Boy and Paramore and all that stuff. And then I went to a boarding school called Kern Hatton Homes in Westminster, Vermont, and that's where I learned. I taught myself how to play the drums there, and I learned trumpet there, and was just playing in jazz band from really young, and just kind of grew up with that musical influence. I was obsessed with everything, and not only playing it, but listening to it. So yeah, that's how I got into music. I started writing around sixth or seventh grade. I started like writing little raps that were terrible, but but I was doing that. I came to South Burlington High School freshman year, and I met Cal, and he was rapping at the time. My manager now was rapping at the time. Yeah, so we started a group freshman year, and he taught me like how to record. We were just recording on and dropping stuff on YouTube, and that's like essentially how I got in the realm of making and releasing music.
So then 99 Neighbors itself, that started with you. Who did you meet at your school, and then you paired up with another pairing, correct? And you guys kind of came together and made this collective?
Yeah. So how it went down was I met Hank through my friend Jake, but he came over to Cal's one time, and we just started working on some music, and Hank wanted to rap, and I really liked his voice, and he was the only other person besides myself and Cal at our school that like actually took music and rapping seriously. So I met Hank through my friend Jake, and essentially Cal. Then through my friend Declan, I met like Shane, and who's our photographer and videographer. And I met Aiden when I was probably like a senior in high school, because he was a grade below me, or maybe two, I think. I met Samba after high school. He hit me up on SoundCloud, and he wanted to make some music. So I linked up with him. He introduced me to Juju, who's our guitar player. And then I met Swank through like just kind of Burlington in itself is so small, and he went to another school. And I would see him at parties or like at the mall or whatever. I just kind of knew him through around town, and I knew he was dope.
Right.
So that's kind of how that's how the members, I guess, met. And some people sprinkle through there because myself and Hank got an apartment in 2017. It was just like an open door policy. We were just kind of working. Whoever wanted to come over and make art was totally allowed to, and as long as you were there to make art. I met a lot of people through that. And that's where the idea of like 99 neighbors, this idea of people coming and going, and it feels like you have 100 neighbors or 99 neighbors.
Yeah, that's cool. So tell me a little bit about like the music scene in Burlington, because we're based here in Colorado, and I guess Burlington isn't known in this realm as a center for creation. So it must have been, like you said, like a small city. What was that kind of creation atmosphere like in such a small town where you all kind of know each other and stuff?
It's Burlington is quaint, and like it's super small, so there's not a lot of people doing especially hip hop. There was like a generation, but they were like more so the old heads in town, if that makes any sense. Like they were just more so there to like freestyle on Friday night at the bar and like do that kind of stuff. Other than that, it's a pretty, like, I know Fish is from Vermont, the band Fish. You have acts like Grace Potter, and it's pretty folky rock like stuff, but not a lot of hip hop. So growing up without that real influence, we were the first ones to really make that statement, I guess. We are here to not just kind of like mess around. We're here to like sell out shows and go crazy and crowd surf and like make great music. And other than that, there weren't a lot of people that were dropping like full length albums, rap albums that were from Burlington that, at least in my eyes, were like quality.
Right.
So yeah, so we wanted to change the whole dynamic. It was moving pretty slow.
Yeah. Do you feel like ever since you guys kind of took that first step and started that creation process, that there have been other acts that have followed, and maybe that the music scene in Burlington has been changed because of that kind of open door policy? Or do you feel like it was more of, 99 Neighbors was a one-off? Like, how do you feel like the long-term impacts have been on the town with your music?
I like to think that we really broke the gates down for whoever is coming up next. I mean, there's a lot of people at the time we were working with that were just either just getting started, and we saw a lot of potential and like really gave them their like motivation, if that makes any sense, or even down to like some people that we used to work with now linked up with these other people from like two different worlds, and now they're making music together. So I mean, there's still a lot of really talented people coming out right now of Burlington, like Notation and David Chief and Lupo and Krusty Cuts and SK and Ravon C. There's a lot of really good artists that are still doing their thing. But yeah, I think we were the first to really kick in the doors and like have and show people that it's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
signed a record deal and we're making really good music and having a lot of fun, and it's possible to make it out of such a small town.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
really cool concept too, this idea of like talent and creatives being able to link together in smaller towns, and like you don't have to be in New York or LA to like.
Exactly.
So I guess I'm curious if Burlington then has a lot of significance. What does Burlington mean for you guys as a group, for you as a person, like artist and individual, as you like move on and move out?
That's a really good question. I think everyone in this group has a different feeling or attachment to Burlington in some way or another. So I can't speak on everyone's, but I can say that it is home. It will always keep us grounded, and it'll always keep us humble, because in such a small town, there wasn't any. We're not loud kids. We're not like super crazy trying to be famous or anything like that. We're just very humble and like to do our thing and kind of keep it that way. So I definitely say we miss it a lot. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But we gotta pursue the dreams in other places. So just like you were saying in your last question, like growing up thinking that I needed to be in LA or New York or Chicago or like all these major cities, or else I'm not gonna make it at all. I guess like thank God for the internet as well, because you can do that all the time these days. But yeah, it's a beautiful place, and it humbles us and it keeps us motivated to continue to want to kick down the doors, because we're just some small town kids from Vermont.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
That's a good answer.
You want to prove that.
Yeah, so I'm curious about what this process of creation is with such a large group of creatives, because obviously I'm sure you
Yeah.
guys comparison all the time to Brockhampton, but in very
Yeah.
similar ways, you have your videographers and photographers, and you have people who are doing multiple things in the group. What does that process kind of look like when you have so many different people with so many different, like, I assume, musical backgrounds and interests? Is it hard to find like a collective sound, or does it kind of mesh naturally?
That's a great question. It mixes all the time, because there's nine people in the group, 9 personalities, not just like you said. There's certain things that people might find like not cool, and then 3 others think it's super sick. So that's kind of stuff can get a little hard, where it's like, kind of not necessarily voting, but it's like everyone's got to be on board at the end of the day, and like trying to make that work for 9 people is hard. But it's beautiful because you have these 9 ideas constantly. So someone could be downstairs, like Juju, for example, is went to Berkeley, so he's like jazz trained, and having just beautiful chords and all this pretty stuff that he can produce, mixed with like this grungy like craziness that samba brings to his productions. And then you have Aiden's beautiful voice sitting right on top, and like Swank comes in with it all comes together so beautifully.
Yeah.
But it can be very hard to try and get everyone's point across all the time.
Right. So that kind of leads me
Yeah.
to the question I had, which is more about individuality. I know you have
Mm.
projects. You released a project in 2018. I saw Hank did as well.
Mhm.
Is that ever something that you personally as an artist struggle with, like that sense of individuality, or do you feel like this is the place where you're supposed to be creating?
That's again a really good question. This is definitely where I'm supposed to be. When Hank and I dropped, he dropped Problem Child, I dropped Collision. That was when we first formed the idea of the group. It was essentially, let's be a bunch of individual artists and release music solo, and then come together and show that we are also this like crazy ass team. So yeah, when we were dropping the EPs, that was cool and all, but we were like, you know what? Together we can make a way cooler sound. We can knock down more doors. We can have more of an impact as a group. And the pieces just kind of fell into our lap beautifully.
Right.
And yeah, and that's how, like, I guess I don't really struggle with finding myself individually, because I know what I like to do, and I still write a lot of music by myself on the side. We all do, like solo stuff. But overall, I think it's just way cooler for myself to come up with like a solo idea, but then bring it to the group and let it explode and see where it goes. So there's still a lot of individuality in the group, although we move very unified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. I can imagine that balance would be kind of tricky to strike at times.
Definitely.
So yeah, I want to talk about television now. Um,
Absolutely.
I have a radio show here. We're actually in our radio station here. And every week I do an artist of the week, and I highlight like an artist and I go through their discography. And
Cool.
first of all, I picked you guys one time, and I want to say thank you for not having like a ton of curse words in your songs, because it takes me forever to censor that stuff. So that was nice. I was like, all right, I appreciate that. But I love the project. I think that it's different from other artists, because when I highlight an artist, it can be hard if they only have a couple projects out to get songs that sound different. But with you guys, it's like every song sounds so different than the last one. It feels like you were really coming out the gates strong, with just demonstrating, from every single song, from Champion to Lock and Key to Coffin of Smoke. Like they all have such different vibes, and like you're highlighting different people's skills, and I was really impressed by it. But I wanted to ask you, like, if that was something that you were doing very purposely, like coming out the gates, you were like trying to say, we can do all this stuff, or if it was kind of just, a byproduct of your creative process. Like, what was the process of making television like in that sense?
All right, that is a really good question. Let's see. It was intentional, first of all, to make sure that from song to song to song to song, it is throwing you left and right. You have no idea what to expect next, because that's my favorite part, is like the element of surprise. And when we first started making music, whether it was solo or even together, we were just, again, going back into having 9 people and 9 influences. You have so much range to work with. Like, I know there's people that listen, like I want people to expect like maybe even a country song, because like we just listen to so much so much music and want to make so much music. Yeah, we went into it off the gate wanting to really make a statement in genres specifically, and not being able to be boxed in right off the gate. We didn't want to drop like a trap album or just a boom bap album. I mean, like, it starts on Champion, which is this crazy vocoder and vocal synth, like Kanye-esque moment. The next song, you jump right into Fly, or you jump into Reprise that jumps into Fly, and then you're just kind of like, whoa, I have no idea what to expect throughout the rest of this project. And that's my favorite part. So yeah, it was very intentional. And it's so good sonically. Listen, I haven't listened to the project back in a long time, but it's yeah, it's my favorite part, is experimenting and showing our range.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think as a listener too, it gets you excited for the next project, because with the last 2 songs that y'all released, they were so different, and you're just like, what is coming next? So pivoting from that, I saw on your guys' website, I don't know if quarantine has affected this or not, that y'all were recording your next project in Island Point, I believe. Island Pond. Yeah. So did y'all do that with quarantine, or like was that still?
So not with quarantine. That actually no, that definitely needs to get updated. But we started that album process in Island Pond, which is it's in Vermont, and it's about 3.5 hours north. It's like really close to Canada and New Hampshire. It's in the middle of nowhere. So we thought we were like doing something super cool by being like, let's go out to the middle of nowhere. It's going to be like cabin fever vibes. And it was super boring at times, but we made a lot of cool stuff, and we were actually living together as a unit for the first time. Before that, everyone was living wherever they were living, and we were all meeting either at Samba's house or like in Jared's basement to make the music, like where Chili's was made, and television was all made in Samba's bedroom.
Right.
So this was our first time, like, okay, let's like get a studio space. We're all gonna live together and like around the clock working. And that was pretty much a trial period, I think, for this new project. And we're taking our sweet time because we have something really special. And we're all super excited. But yeah, we're taking our time and really making sure that we knock all the things off. But Island Pond was more of an era. That was when we were working on a lot of the videos for like Fake Pods and Ripstick. We shot there, and Fuck No, we shot there. Yeah. So we shot all that. That was a really cool period. But since then, we've moved to Chicago for a year. That was where we spent most of quarantine. Was really locked in making a ton of music, and we just moved to Nashville 2 weeks ago.
Cool. Yeah, I was about to ask about that. I didn't know that you guys had moved to Chicago, but your manager mentioned that you guys just moved to Nashville.
Yes.
What's the decision process like when you're deciding which city to go move to? Because Los Angeles seems like a pretty obvious choice, but y'all are going to these other ones that are, I guess, maybe pushing you some more. Like, what was the decision behind going to Nashville and Chicago instead of like a big, city?
Yeah, we were in Island Pond, realized that we kind of hit our cap in Burlington. I mean, like the biggest venue there is Higher Ground, and it only holds 700. So like that's about unless you're playing outside at a festival. And so we wanted to just be somewhere where there was more happening. We thought about New York, and just as Vermonters, we just aren't super like we're just kind of claustrophobic in that sense. Like I don't want to be in New York, like at least not right now. And I do love New York though. And so we decided on Chicago because when we signed with Pat Corcoran and Nice Work and Warner. We were like, you know what, let's go be with the gang out there and see what Chicago brings, because it's a little bit more spread out than New York. And there's a lot of opportunities. It's a music city. It's a beautiful city. And unfortunately, we didn't really get to embrace it all because of quarantine, which was super ironic. So Chicago was, I wish I could say it gave me a whole lot of musical inspiration, but it really didn't, only because we were locked in the whole time. But a lot of cool stuff came out of it. And so since quarantine is still going on, and we don't really know what is going on with coronavirus or shows and all this stuff. So we came down to Nashville, where we have a lovely backyard and more space, and we can get outside and kind of be a little more free.
Right. Are you all living together again, or are you living?
We are.
Okay, cool.
Indeed.
What is that like to live with all the people that you work with? Is it like a constant creative thing, or is it like something you have to like dial in really when you want to go make music, or what's that like?
We are. I'll say this: we're still figuring it out. Because I'm only 23. I think the oldest member is Swank. I think he's just turned 25. And we are figuring out how to balance personal life with work life, with creativity, and it's very hard, like having to do the dishes, but then you got to go like record and like kind of separating those two, like work life and home life. But we've gotten really good at it. In Island Pond, for example, that was when we first were figuring that whole thing out. Like, how do we separate music and life, because it was just getting too diluted, So it's awesome, though. You get to live with your 9 best friends, but you also live with your 9 best friends, so like they can get on your nerves pretty quick, and vice versa. I'm sure I get on everyone's nerves. So like, it's beautiful. I honestly couldn't ask for anything better. So. It's cool, and you learn a lot about people and about yourself and how you work and how to separate a lot of things.
For sure. My next question is about your collaboration with Brass Tracks, because I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
They've got some really cool songs and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how that collaboration came about, and if when you're collaborating with people, it's the big process of like you're bringing 9 people to the table, and then they're bringing their 4 or whatever, 3 or 4 people, and then you're all working together, or is it more like 1 or 2 people kind of touch base? Like, what does a collaboration process look like when you have a team of 9 people?
Yeah, that's a good question. First of all, Brass Tracks is awesome. I've been listening to them since I was in high school, since I was like a junior in high school. And how we met them was we were playing a show at Elsewhere in New York, in Brooklyn, I believe it is. And there was this really tall dude in the crowd who was like going crazy and like loving the music while we were playing. And then after the show, he introduced himself. He's like, "Hey man, like I'm Ivan from Brass Tracks. I love your stuff." And I was like, "Whoa, that's sick." That was the first time I'd ever met another artist that enjoyed the music that I make, that I also enjoyed theirs. And so he hit us. He was like, "Hey man, take my number. I would love to make some music sometime." And about, I'd say like 2 months later, maybe even a month later, not even, we created Fuck No. And it was just the bare bones. It was just the acoustic guitar plucks and those like very slight drums. And we had the verses, and we sent it to him. Was like, "Hey, what do you want to do with this?" And he had it back in, I think, like a day. And we flew out to LA, and we were in the hotel in LA. And it was actually, I think it was like the day before we officially signed our record deal. We got the stems back in the hotel, and we were just listening to the chords like, "Yo, we just killed this." Like, yeah, so it was super quick. He's awesome to work with. They're so awesome to work with. And outside of Brass Tracks, there hasn't been a whole lot of collaboration with a lot of other artists, because there's so many in here that I think right now we're really focused on what we can actually bring to the table as a collective before we start to branch out and like, kind of touch base with a bunch of people. And also kind of we're brand new. I have no idea who even likes us or who wants to work or like what they want to offer. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty balanced way to look at collaboration. But that track was sick. I like.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess. So next, I wanted to talk a little bit about y'all's texting feature and your Twitch streams and everything like that. Because we're living in this age when like Kenny Beats gets on and like does these crazy videos and makes it back in front of people, and it seems to make production and music a lot more accessible to people. So especially seeing as you're coming from this small town, kind of internet-based music experience, how important are those direct connections that you have to your fans, like the Text Me feature? Where did that come from, and why is that integral? Because it seems to be very integral to your band's kind of method and structure.
Absolutely. It's extremely important for us to tap in with fans, because at least for me, when you come from such a small town, I mean, actually, when you're just coming up in music, I have, again, like no idea who really rocks with us. And like, it's so awesome to talk to people that are like, "Yo, you guys are sick." And like, even yourself included. So like, I'm honored to be on. So thank you. But it's super awesome to just touch base and like even just see how people's day is. Like it's that simple. I know a lot of artists use like the like community and stuff like that for just like sending out singles and stuff. But every now and then we'll check in and be like, "Hey, yo, like how was your day? What you up to?" Like, right. And it feels really good, because then they get to see you in concert, and there's just that much more connection. That you actually like care. We actually care for our fans that care about us, because without them we would be absolutely nothing. And Twitch was Jared and I. Well, we're all gamers essentially. I don't play many video games, but a lot of the people in the group play a lot of video games, and they're like, "Yo, we should just like get on and start gaming." And a few of them do, but Jared and I were talking about 99 Radio, and we were like, "Yo, what can we do when quarantine first started? Like, how do we like have some fun on it?" Honestly, it started off out of like us being bored. We were like, "What do we do? We're just stuck in the house. Like, I want to dance. I want to party. Like, we can't go to a party, so let's just party here." Again, another pro of having 9 people. You can party whenever you want to. So yeah, that started just from a boredom and quarantine thing, and it grew to be something really cool. Like,
Yeah.
shout out to Kenny Beats. We were a part of his like beat battle for a little bit during quarantine, which
Yeah.
was super fun. And that sparked us to start making beats on Twitch and making songs on Twitch. And it's a really cool way to show people outside of just releasing music and like looking cool in a video.
Yeah, it's crazy because it seems to really bring a new light to producers that I never thought about before. Because, like, you know, I've been a lifelong music fan, but I never thought about the producing behind it until I started watching like those Kenny Beats videos, the Cave videos.
Yeah.
And so was that a part of some of your producing and producers' life coming up in all this? Was like watching the online, you know, the YouTube videos and kind of learning about sampling and stuff. Like, what does the producing process behind your songs look like?
I don't have as much insight as Samba would or Juju or Jared. But I can say I can't say I met Samba when he was making EDM music when he was like 14 or 13. I think he was 14. Or he started making EDM when he was 14. And watching a bunch of YouTube tutorials, and like we call it like YouTube University.
Yeah.
You can learn anything on YouTube. So I know even myself, like when I'm making beats, I'll go on and be like, how do I do this? Because I'm not as experienced. But yeah, I wish I could speak more on how they make beats, because I sometimes I'm even just staring like, what are you even doing? I have no idea what that is. But yeah, I guess YouTube University is where a lot of people get. I mean, sure, interviews. Samba's always listening to, like, you can catch him listening to like opera and then switching over to like some scream metal band, and then I'm sure looking up like an interview with that band and directors. Even I know Samba's really into film, and so he'll watch a lot of like uh, uh, director interviews and behind the scenes stuff, and try and incorporate like the thought process and the whys and all that stuff into the production, and making it less of like about a beat and more of a full moving, like kind of like I'm sure you know the song 19. Yeah, just kind of like making it more of a statement than a beat. But I can't add too much. I wish I could.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good transition into your visual teams and the visual side of 99 Neighbors. I feel like is always exciting in that same way. Where like Welcome to Chili's, the video for that is so interesting, the way that they utilize like, you know, Snapchat and iPhone videos, and then you know Ripstick and these kind of more, you know, fake pods, like more cinematic looking ones. And do you have any insight in the video and like photo design side of things, even with like the designs that you guys put in the background of some of your streams that are just like in the background, it's like tigers and shit, like
Yeah.
a very solid brand behind that thinking that is also like it's based in just kind of like chaos and like trying new things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you think about that, and if you have any insights on that side of the production.
Yeah, I have a little. So that's Shane's department. He's fantastic. He started off when we first got started, just taking photos at shows and just wanted to be there with a camera all the time, film whatever. And that's kind of how we started the branding of like I like to look at Welcome to Chili's as like the most us video.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just having fun. We don't want to pose in front of cars and throw money or like do any like thing that's not us, and like that we find funny and like fun, I guess. Including like fake pods, like just dressing up like a bunch of like hillbillies and like just doing random stuff. Yeah, and it's like kind of, it's still immature because we love to have fun and not take everything too seriously. Even with like the color schemes of videos. But I'm glad you like Welcome to Chili's, because that was us just being like, hey, let's go get like drunk at a bowling alley and take a bunch of random footage that we have saved from Snapchat and just put it all together with this sick song.
Yeah,
It's kind of a cluster.
With the music too, and the brand, like I said, it feels very chaotic, but that feels like a brand.
Thank you.
I think it definitely works. Like in Ripstick, the kind of subtext of like the fight going on in the background. He gets the
Yeah.
his head, like it's
Yeah, that one was like one of our most thought out, I guess, because it actually kind of has like, the fight scene and we're at the train yard and all that stuff. But like, and also like Fuck No is another perfect example of like, it doesn't really matter. We're just having fun. And like, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't.
right. Well, that's awesome. Kind of going off of that, the last two projects that you released videos, animated videos with them.
Indeed.
It's more of like a story kind of telling one, and the other one was kind of a cool visual that went along with it. Who thought of that, and where did that come from?
I am blanking on his name, which is really bad. But, it's our homie in LA who we reached out to because we were planning on doing actual videos for the songs, and then when quarantine hit, we were just like, all right, how can we do this differently then? Because there's a lot of places are shut down. We can't just go shoot like we normally could. At that time, specifically, like the curfew was very real. And we were like, you know what, like let's take a crack at animation because we're big Rick and Morty fans and like Brickleberry and Family Guy. And I was like, let's just see what we look like in cartoon form. And it came out really well. Quap was supposed to be just this fun story about us getting weed from Colorado to Chicago. And Basement, we wanted to shoot like a really cool video, but honestly didn't have the assets for what we really wanted to do visually. So we created a visualizer to match in that bundle as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that definitely went off of the kind of evolution and exploration that you guys seem to have with your music. Like bleeding into also the visuals, because there's another thing you wouldn't expect, like
exactly, an animated video out of left field, but it came out really well, and I love that video so much.
Yeah, it's really dope.
Thank you.
So where did those two songs come from? Did they come from pre-quarantine kind of when and where did those originate from?
I believe so. Quap was made in, I think it was not post quarantine, but like shortly after quarantine really started. We were in CRC downtown in Chicago, and Samba had that crazy synth, that dum 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 dum. And we were just in the studio, jumped on that, and Swank had that really good hook, and it made everyone laugh and like also want to rap really hard, which was cool. And Basement was also in CRC, I think just like honestly a week later. They came pretty much at close to the same time. And Aiden, I walked into the studio one day and Aiden just had that hook on repeat. It took that motherfucker far from the basement. And we were like, oh shit, like, and I really resonated with that one because at the time our studio setup was just like in the basement of our house, and that's where we tracked like the demo and stuff like that. So it felt very true to self, if that makes any sense. But they were probably say March-ish. I remember it was cold outside.
Yeah.
So I can't really remember. But yeah.
Cool. Have you guys created a lot of stuff in quarantine then? Or has it been sort of difficult to find the creative drive for that?
Both. Yes, we have created a ridiculous amount of music over this quarantine that we're super excited about. And it has been a little hard sometimes. I remember specifically, to get a little serious, we were in Chicago when all of the protests started going down and the riots, and like just when everything just started going down. And we were downtown in the studio. We went to a few protests, and then they were starting to get really out of hand. And I'm not a Chicago native, so I didn't want to get caught up in any like sort of crazy things. So we were in the studio, and it felt like kind of like the world was on fire around you, and trying to make that also mix with being like stuck inside every day and not being able to, just even like really you can go on a walk, but like can't really go to the beach and experience life and like, do all the things that everyone was doing before. So it definitely affected the creativity at first. We're slowly learning, how to go about it, still learning. And they blend, because some days you just want to sit there and like really feel bummed out, and then other days you're like, you know what, I'm gonna make the greatest song ever. So it's still finding that balance of trying to mix those home life, if that makes any sense.
Did you feel like you could feel a tangible effect in the music and in like on your lyricism and the things that you were talking about in your music post the riots and quarantine and having all these difficult to talk about and difficult to feel feelings, and then going and creating? Did you feel like those two things became directly interlinked at any point?
Yeah, it was I wrote a few, like I write all the time. We all write, whether it's going to be on a song or whether it's just a journal entry and stuff like that. So yeah, I was definitely writing a bunch about just kind of the state of the world and more so getting things off of my chest and on paper. But it also just made me look at things different in making music different. Like, uh, yeah, it's kind of hard to put into words, but it's such a crazy and necessary and needed thing, the protests and this entire movement. And you want to feel empowered and you want to empower more people. So I was writing just more powerful verses, more thought out, like in depth, really getting to know myself as well via like quarantine. I had a lot of time to just sit with myself and really ask myself questions and and get to the bottom of a lot of things, if that makes any sense. And it all comes out in the music more than I would. I feel like if I was on tour having a lot of fun, I'd probably get a lot of like really cool upbeat records where I'm just having fun and rocking out and saying whatever. But I think it was a very important time for me to really get to know myself and write about those things and learn from them.
Cool. Yeah, definitely curious to hear these new projects coming out.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah. In terms of tour, you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, did you get to do your tour before COVID happened, or were you in the midst of it? I know you.
No.
It didn't happen.
No, unfortunately, no.
Okay.
We did the first two stops in Denver, or we did one in Denver, one in Vail.
Yeah.
And then we flew back, and maybe I think it was that week or later. I think just later that week, like that's when it got no more. So no, we only did the first two stops, and then it was no more, which is so unfortunate. But we'll be back.
Yeah, well, you better, because I was gonna go to that Denver show, and then something
missed out.
I know, and that could have been my last show before quarantine, which I'm bummed about. But you'll be back.
So we'll be back. I love Denver. It's one of my favorite cities to be in. I love Colorado, period.
Have you been out here a lot, or is it
only once? But it was like so sick and so fun, and it reminded me a lot of home. So I'm excited to get back there.
You got to come to Boulder next time.
I gotta come to Boulder. I really have to go to Boulder. Yeah,
we'll come to Boulder. We'll hook you. Okay, so how for those two shows? What was that experience like? Have you played in a lot of different states, or was this kind of going to be your first run, first time in a lot of those states?
Both, actually. So we did a lot of shows last summer when we were like leading up to all the singles and stuff like that. I remember we played like Made in America. We did Lollapalooza. We were just doing a bunch of show runs last year, but it was kind of on the back end of things. And so we were really stoked to get into new cities and do a bunch of new stuff this year. We're going to do like Bottle Rock and Osheaga, which was like super sentimental to me because I've been going to Osheaga for a while. And so it would have been our first time in a lot of these states, at least for me, which was a bummer. But the Denver shows went by. It kind of bums me out even more because the Denver shows or the Colorado shows were just insane. The first one was at Vail for the U.S. Open, and it was sick. Everyone was going crazy. Everyone was super drunk and having a great time. Yeah. And then next night went to Denver and almost sold it out, which was super cool. I didn't expect anyone. I was expecting like 50 people. I didn't really expect much. Again, like I'm pretty humble and I don't really like check the numbers like that. So it felt really good to have that crowd, and they went crazy and it was super fun. So I was excited, but my first taste of it was really good.
You get your taste, and then it's immediately ripped.
Exactly. I got a taste, and then they're like, "Yeah, no, you thought."
Did you go to Laramie Lounge?
Yes, Larimer Lounge.
Okay.
Yeah, Larimer Lounge.
I don't know either. I should.
I know as much as you.
I should know it. That kind of brings us to a bit of a close here. I wanted to know, what's on the horizon for y'all. You're just kind of waiting for COVID news, seeing what's gonna happen, when's the next album coming out. What's going on with you guys?
Well, let's see. We just moved to Nashville. Been here for 2 weeks. We'll see how this city treats us. We'll see how it goes. So far, hopes are high. Creativity's high. Expectations low.
Yeah.
The music is chugging along. We're making a bunch. We're super excited about the music we're making. It's, in my opinion, best shit I've ever heard. But it's we got a lot of things on our horizon. We're working. We're also waiting to see what COVID does and see what the world does. Hopefully getting back on the road next year. Hopefully doing a lot next year. We'll see how it goes. We're kind of just playing it by ear, but comfortably. We're in a good spot. We're rocking out. We're okay.
That's good.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for meeting with us.
Of course.
On this first episode of the Crave podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. This is awesome.
Well, it's an honor for me to talk to you. So
thank you very much.
Good luck in Nashville. I'm looking forward to hearing whatever you guys put up next.
Thank you so much. Much love and have a lovely day.
You too. See ya.
Bye.